So this year, Apple has decided to keep both the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the iPhone 13 Pro exactly the same. Same processor, same camera, except the battery's a little bit different. But ultimately, it comes down to size. And if you're comparing it from last year's model, then of course the battery, the processor, the camera have all been upgraded. And don't forget the all-important 120Hz display, which I'll be explaining it later in the video. This year, Apple has made their flagship model just a tad thicker and heavier, but that's not too bad considering what you get in return. The iPhone 13 Pro Max has a ridiculously good battery performance. There's times where I've been traveling all day using Waze for navigation, then coming home to go on YouTube, Crunchyroll, or going on FaceTime with our parents, and still have half the battery left. I usually get around 8 hours of screen time, and that's with full charge and with default settings. I personally can achieve 2 days worth of use before I need to charge it again. Amazing, right? With all iPhones, you sadly do not get a power adapter, but you do get USB-C to lightning cable inside the box, allowing you to connect to a 20-watt power adapter costing you around £19 from Apple, which enables fast charging. Or you can go for the cheaper adapter that works just as well, which is the Anker Nano for $12.99. Or like me, you can get the Spigen USB-C charger for $11.99. Both works really well and can save you a lot of money. You can still use your old iPhone 5-watt charger, but it is painfully slow. For me, the 20-watt charger takes me about less than 2 hours for full charge. And with the 5-watt charger, well, you can imagine how long it will take. Now onto the screen. The iPhone 13 Pro Max has a max brightness of 1000 nits, and by comparison, the iPhone 12 Pro Max has a max brightness of 800 nits. That's 200 nits more than the previous model. Now, we were all hoping that this year is the year that Apple will finally remove the notch. Instead, they reduced it down to 20%, which you can still visually tell the difference even though Apple don't utilize the space they made. But they finally added 120Hz refresh rate to this year's Pro models, aka ProMotion. And if you're into tech like me, you can immediately tell the difference. Switching apps or scrolling has become so much more smoother, but I'm not too sure if this will attract everyone. And Apple don't really have any games to take advantage of the 120Hz refresh rate. However, you do have the option to limit the refresh rate to 60Hz if you wish you don't need it, which should increase your battery performance if you want it to last longer. Before I move on to the topic we all want to hear about, let me quickly go over the processor. Apple has upgraded all their models this year to the brand new A15 Bionic chip, 6-core CPU, but in the Pro models, you get 5-core GPU compared to the 4-core found on the iPhone 13 and the Mini. The RAM hasn't been upgraded. Both the Pro models has 6GB. The 13 and the 13 Mini have 4GB, same as last year. So how is this year's Pro Max camera? After all, that is the reason why we're here. And off the bat, Apple did not disappoint. The iPhone Pro Max produces some of the best photos and videos I've seen. Of course, this is my opinion, and you may see that other Android flagship phones are better suited for you. But saying that, I did notice an imperfection that might put off a lot of you guys. Nevertheless, it's still a great camera. Apple has added some fantastic features to this year's flagship models. For example, style options. You get 5 different styles: standard, rich contrast, vibrant, warm, and cool. They may look like filters at first glance, but they are rendered without affecting natural skin tones. This almost feels like Apple's way of catering to photographers that prefer Android rich contrast. If you prefer tweaking the warmth and tone, you also have the option too. Styles is not limited to main lenses. In fact, it's available to all 3 lenses, including the front-facing camera. Speaking of lenses, both the main and the wide-angle lens have been upgraded to 1.5 and 1.8 aperture compared to last year's model of 1.6 and 2.4 aperture. All that basically means is that both lenses can now take in more light, which is a big boost for those all-important nighttime shots. The telephoto lens has been slightly upgraded from 2.5 optical zoom to 3 optical zoom. Apple has added autofocus capability on the ultra-wide camera, allowing you to take photos 2 centimeters away from your subject. Another highlight Apple has unveiled is the cinematic mode, and to be honest with you, it's a pleasant feature to use. From my experience, whenever I use portrait mode, it sometimes struggled focusing on the subject, but the cinematic feature works really well. You can take some incredible videos, and I promise you, if I show the cinematic footage to someone that hasn't experienced it yet, they will think that it was not taken on an iPhone. At times, it was effortlessly switching from one subject to another, especially when you're shooting outdoors. However, if you do feel like you need adjusting, you can modify the intensity and the focal point of the video. Sadly though, I didn't like the face detection when using cinematic mode. At times, it did struggle to figure out when to change focus, and the timing was off. The downside of this feature is that it only records up to 1080p at 30 frames per second instead of 4K. Personally, it's a shame because I use iPhone to record my videos for YouTube in 4K. However, I do see this as a minor issue for TikTok and Instagram videos. And you can't switch lenses as soon as you start filming in cinematic mode, but you can remove the cinematic feature after it's been recorded. But it doesn't end there. Apple has added ProRes to both the Pro models. What is ProRes? It's Apple's professional video codec, and for those who love recording in 4K, with this enabled, you'll be able to record even higher quality, producing some of the best video footage you'll see in any smartphone devices. But it comes at a cost. Not only is this feature available on Pro models, but you will need to have 256GB or higher. And I completely understand why Apple has decided to take this approach after experiencing ProRes. Take this, all my YouTube videos are filmed using the iPhone in 4K 30 frames per second. That's roughly around 1 hour long without any editing. If I decided to film in ProRes, instead of it being around 30GB, it will now be around 360GB. Regardless of how you use your iPhone for filming, a 5-minute video footage in ProRes will be about 30GB. You get the idea why Apple released a terabyte version? So how do you enable this feature? First, make sure your brand new iPhone 13 Pro or your Pro Max is up to date. Go to Camera under Settings, tap on Formats, and enable Apple ProRes. So how does the iPhone handle in low light? Now, before I continue, I just want to say that I am not a photographer and I apologize in advance. Nevertheless, the iPhone continues to surprise me. Apple still maintains that crisp quality. There's not that much noise as you will expect in low light conditions, and it's not exposed compared to other flagship models. It still maintains the realistic photo look, and of course you can still use styles in night mode if you want. But not everything about the iPhone 13 Pro Max is sunshines and rainbows. There's one thing that annoys the living life out of me. Take these lens flares. They pop up on your screen whenever you directly point it at a bright source. First, I thought that I did break my phone, damage the lenses, and then you start to realize Apple messed up. Coming from an Apple fan myself and paying around £1,100, you would expect Apple to do much better. If you manage to push that to the side, you'll start to notice some amazing pictures that you have captured. Take this rose for example. It managed to capture the red without creating too much noise. Even when the rose is not the main centerpiece, it still managed to capture the color. And I promise you, every single video footage or image I've shown today, none of them have been edited. They've all been done by the iPhone. A quick tip for you guys, if you like to take longer exposure times, you can set it to a maximum of 10 seconds. As default, the iPhone will either pick 1 second or 3 seconds, depending on how lit the area is. Going back to low light footage, I can't say Apple has nailed the front-facing camera. There's way too much noise. The image is not as clear as you expect taken during the day, and to be honest with you, it didn't feel like it was captured in 4K or 1080p. It felt more like 720, which is really disappointing considering how advanced technology is today. Speaking of front-facing camera, you can still expect to take some decent selfie photos or videos during the day. Cinematic mode is still available for front-facing camera. I would suggest edit the video. At times, it did feel like it was a bit too much. So that's my take on the brand new iPhone 13 Pro Max. Just remember that if you do go for the Pro models, both models are completely identical except for the bigger battery and of course the bigger screen. Let me know in the comments below if you are considering upgrading to the iPhone 13 Pro Max or if you're considering switching from Android to Apple. Personally, I don't think it is a huge step if you're coming from iPhone 12 Pro Max. I would wait for iPhone 14. Maybe this time they might remove the notch. We'll see. Don't forget to hit that like button and hit that notification bell to be notified for future videos. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, this is Imad the Tech Guy signing out. Bye.